Welcome to Craving the Heat, where desire takes the lead and every story leaves you wanting more. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments and keep up with our latest naughty stories. The night had started so simply, with the sound of voices echoing through the hallway, laughter spilling in from the front door as my husband returned with his friends. It was unusual. He rarely entertained at home. Work dinners, yes. Golf outings, always. But inviting his friends here, into our space, into the sanctuary I built for myself, that was something new. I remember wiping my hands on the dish towel as the front door opened. The house, normally quiet after dark, filled with energy. My husband, Mark, stepped inside first, his tie loosened, cheeks flushed from drinking. Behind him trailed three men, tall and animated, the kind of presence that immediately made the room feel smaller. "Laura," Mark said, grinning at me. "These guys didn't want the night to end, so I told them we'd stop by." "I hope you don't mind." Of course, I smiled, polite and welcoming, even though a flicker of irritation sparked in me. I had planned for silence, for the comfort of routine. But as I ushered them in, poured drinks, and set out whatever snacks I could, gather, something shifted. One of them, his name was Adam, caught my attention almost immediately. Not because he was louder than the rest, not because he was particularly handsome, but because his eyes found mine and lingered. It wasn't the glance of a stranger in my home. It was something else measured, curious, like he'd been waiting to see me. I busied myself in the kitchen, trying not to think about the weight of his gaze. From the living room came bursts of laughter, Mark's voice rising above the others. I set down another round of glasses, and when I straightened, Adam was there, leaning casually against the doorframe, watching me. "You're a great host," he said quietly, as if he didn't want the others to hear. "Habit," I replied, forcing a smile. "Someone has to keep things running." His smile was faint, but it stayed in his eyes. "Mark's lucky." Something in the way he said it low, deliberate, made my pulse skip. I brushed it off, but all night I felt his presence like static. In the air, close even when he was across the room. Hours passed. Bottles emptied. Laughter turned softer, slurred. The men began to fade, sprawled on the couches. Mark, predictably, was the first to fall asleep, his head dropping back against the cushions, his snores cutting through the quiet. I thought the night was ending then. I began gathering glasses, loading the dishwasher, my body aching for rest. But when I turned, Adam was standing in the kitchen again, closer this time. "You shouldn't have to clean up after everyone," he said. His voice was softer now, intimate. I shrugged. "If I don't, no one will." He stepped closer, his shoulder brushing mine as he reached for a glass, setting it gently into the sink. I froze, the nearness of him making my breath shallow. "You do everything?" he said, almost to himself. I could see it the second I walked in. "You're the one who holds this house together." I wanted to argue, to deflect, but his words pierced through me. Because he was right. And because it had been so long since anyone had noticed, the silence between us stretched, heavy with something unspoken. I turned to move past him, but he didn't step back. Instead, his hand brushed mine, deliberate, slow. I should have pulled away. I should have reminded him of my husband sleeping just a room away. But I didn't. That single touch lingered like fire under my skin. When I finally slipped past him, my heart was pounding, and I knew the night wasn't over, not for. Later, after the house had gone completely silent, I found myself awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. Mark's snores rumbled beside me, and in the darkness, I could feel the echo of Adam's touch, replaying over and over. I don't know if it was minutes or hours later when I heard the faintest knock on the kitchen door. My body moved before my mind could stop it. I patted down. The hall, barefoot, my robe pulled tight. He was there, waiting. His expression said everything neither of us had dared to speak. The space between us dissolved in an instant. His hand found my face, and I let him kiss me, let him pour into me the kind of hunger I'd been starving for. The kiss was deep, reckless. And when he whispered my name against my lips, I forgot entirely that my husband was asleep in the next room. What began as one night, one mistake stretched into everything I thought I'd buried long ago. Adam became the secret I carried in my chest, the pulse that reminded me I was alive. Every glance, every word, every stolen moment was a rebellion against the emptiness of my marriage. And no, I knew it couldn't last. That reality would find us. I clung to those nights. Because in them, I wasn't just Mark's wife, or the woman who held everything together. I was wanted. I was seeing and that changed everything. The next morning should have been ordinary, but at WSN single quotes T. Sunlight streamed in through the curtains. And I lay awake, staring at the ceiling while Mark snored beside me. Every breath he took grated on me, reminding me of what I'd done, reminding me that a few doors down, Adam had been asleep too. My lips still tingled, my skin still carried the warmth of his hands, and no amount of denial could erase it. At breakfast, I tried to act normal, pouring coffee, setting toast on the table, laughing when Mark's friends teased him about passing out first. Adam sat quietly at the edge of the table, his eyes never quite meeting mine, but I could feel in his silence his restraint more than all the noise around us. When they finally left, I thought relief would wash over me. Instead, the house felt empty, cavernous. Mark kissed me absent-mindedly on the cheek before heading to the office, and I stood at the sink, staring out the window, wondering why I suddenly felt like a stranger in my own life. Days turned into weeks. I didn't expect to see Adam again, but fate or maybe cruelty had other plans. He and Mark had been friends for years, and suddenly Adam was around more often. Golf trips, late dinners, casual drop-ins that felt anything but casual. Every time he was near, the air between us thickened. Sometimes it was just a glance across a crowded room, sometimes a hand brushing mine as I passed him a drink. Small things, invisible to anyone else, but they unraveled me. One night, Mark hosted a poker game at the house. I busied myself with snacks and drinks, pretending not to notice the way Adam's eyes tracked me as I moved. When the game dragged late, I excused myself, claiming I was tired. Hours later, I woke to footsteps outside my door. My heart hammered, every nerve on edge. The door didn't open, but a folded note slid quietly underneath. My breath caught as I picked it up, hands trembling. Meet me tomorrow. The cafe on Oak Street, noon. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The cave was small, tucked away, the kind of place you miss if you weren't looking for it. I arrived early, nerves fraying, telling myself I wouldn't go in. But when I saw him through the window, waiting, I couldn't walk away. We sat across from each other, the table between us loaded with unspoken words. He didn't waste time. I can't stop thinking about you, Adam said, his voice low almost. Hoarse. That night it wasn't just a mistake. It was everything I'd been wanting. I swallowed hard, my fingers twisting around the coffee cup. You're my husband's friend. I know. His eyes burned into mine. And you're his wife. But that doesn't change the truth. The truth. That word broke me open, because the truth was, I wanted him too. More than I wanted anything in years. We tried to resist. We did. But that afternoon, in the safety of his car parked down a quiet street, we gave in. It was clumsy, desperate, two people starved for connection. The windows fogged, our breaths mingled, and for the first time in so long, I felt alive. After that, there was no going back. We built our affair on shadows, texts sent at odd hours. Meetings stolen in the middle of the day, excuses made to cover. Absences. Every touch felt like fire, every kiss a secret I couldn't stop craving. But passion wasn't the only thing blooming between us. There was tenderness, too. He listened when I talked about my loneliness, about the way my marriage had crumbled into routine and obligation. He held me when I admitted I felt invisible in my own home. You're not invisible, he whispered once, tracing his fingers along my jaw. You're the brightest thing in my life. And I believed him. The guilt gnawed at me, of course. There were nights I'd lie beside Mark, my body still humming from Adam's touch, and I'd wonder who I'd become. But then I'd remember the way Mark barely looked at me anymore, the way he took me for granted, and the guilt would blur into justification that it wasn't just about betrayal. It was about survival, about finding someone that reminded me I was still a woman, still worthy of being desired. Months passed. The affair became part of me, like a second skin I wore beneath the surface of my life. Every stolen moment with Adam only made me hunger for more. The danger of it, the secrecy, only deepened the bond between us. And slowly, terrifyingly, I began to realize it wasn't just an affair anymore. It was love. Love that lived in glances and hurried touches, in whispered promises that one day we'd find a way. And that was the part that scared me most. Because love, unlike passion, demands a choice, and I wasn't ready to make one. Autumn came, and with it the kind of cool evenings that made the house feel even lonelier. Mark had been traveling more, absorbed in business trips that kept him away for days at a time. I told myself I missed him, that I wanted my marriage to feel whole again. But deep down, I knew the ache I carried wasn't for him. It was for Adam. We had fallen into a rhythm, one that neither of us spoke of out loud, but both of us lived in. A text in the morning, usually something simple. Thinking of you. A stolen lunch hour where he touched my hand under the table, his thumb drawing circles against my skin as if he couldn't stop himself. A late night call when he knew Mark was asleep, his voice low, his laugh warm, the sound of it wrapping around me like a secret blanket. The danger of it should have scared me more. But instead, it made everything sharper, every kiss more urgent, every touch more desperate. One evening, Mark invited his friends over again, including Adam. The house buzzed with laughter and clinking glasses, but I could barely breathe. Every time I passed through the living room, I felt Adam's eyes on me, burning with the weight of all we weren't allowed to say. At one point, when I set down a tray of drinks, his fingers brushed mine. Just a second. Barely anything. But I nearly dropped the glass. Later that night, after everyone had gone, I walked into the kitchen to find Adam waiting by the back door. My breath caught. "You forgot your jacket," I whispered, though I knew he hadn't. His eyes flickered. Over my face, his voice low. "I couldn't leave without seeing you." It was reckless, stupid, but the moment the words left his mouth, I was in his arms. The kiss was fierce, unrestrained, like he had been holding it back all night. My heart raced with fear of being caught, yet my body pressed closer to him, as though I couldn't exist without that heat. He pulled away, forehead resting against mine. "I can't keep pretending, Laura, His voice broke. "I love you." The words stunned me, though I had felt them long before he spoke them. My lips parted, and before I could stop myself, I whispered them back. "I love you too." It was a line we could never uncross. From that night on, everything changed. Our affair wasn't just passion and secrecy anymore, it carried the weight of a future neither of us could name. He started asking questions. What if you left, Mark? What if we didn't have to hide anymore? I'd lie awake at night, staring at the man I had promised my life to, and wonder if love could justify the ruin I was about to bring. And yet, every time I saw Adam, my resolve shattered. There was a weekend when Mark left on a business trip, and Adam stayed with me. We didn't bother with secrecy then. We cooked dinner together, laughing in the kitchen as if we were already a couple. We danced in the living room with no music playing, just the rhythm of our hearts. And when we made love, it wasn't hurried or desperate. It was slow, tender, the kind of intimacy that feels like the longing dot in those 48 hours. I glimpsed the life I could have with him. And it terrified me because it felt so real, so possible. But when Mark came home, suitcase in hand, tired and distracted, guilt washed over me in waves. He kissed my forehead absently, asked what I'd done while he was gone, and I lied. I lied. So easily it scared me. The double life consumed me. There were nights I'd wake in a sweat, torn between the man I had built a life with and the man who had become my entire heartbeat. I knew the truth couldn't stay buried forever. Affairs always surface, whether in slips of the tongue, in careless moments, or in the sheer impossibility of keeping something so powerful contained. The breaking point came one evening in winter. Mark had planned a dinner with friends, and of course, Adam was invited. The house was warm with candlelight, glasses of wine on the table, laughter echoing through the rooms. But all I could feel was tension. At one point, I caught Adam watching me from across the room. His gaze wasn't subtle, it was raw, unguarded, filled with love that had nowhere else to go. For a terrifying second, I thought Mark had noticed. That night, after everyone had left, Mark turned to me with a strange expression. "You've been different lately," he said slowly. "Is there something I should know?" My throat tightened. Words tangled inside me, the truth clawing to escape. But I swallowed them down, forcing a smile. "No, of course not. Just tired, I guess." He didn't look convinced, and that was when I realized the truth. I was living on borrowed time. Adam, and I could only exist in shadows for so long. One day, the secret would break, and when it did, it would change everything: my marriage, his friendship with Mark, the lives we had all carefully built. But even knowing the risk, I couldn't stop, because when Adam looked at me, I felt seen. When he touched me, I felt alive. And when he whispered that he loved me, I believed him in a way I hadn't believed anyone in years. And maybe, just maybe, that was worth the ruin to come. After that winter dinner, something shifted in me. Mark's suspicion, his quiet searching eyes had shaken me. I tried to distance myself from Adam, to tell myself that what we had could only ever end in disaster. For a week, I ignored his messages, avoided the places where I knew he might find me, but the silence was unbearable. It was like trying to hold my breath for days. Every time my phone lit up and it wasn't him, my chest ached. Every night I lay beside Mark, I imagined Adam's arms instead, his voice whispering promises I longed to believe in. And then one night, the silence broke. It was nearly midnight when I heard the faint knock on the back door. I froze, heart pounding. I knew. It was him before I even looked. My hands trembled as I turned the lock. He stood there, coat damp from the rain, eyes burning with frustration and longing. "You can't just disappear on me, Laura," he said, voice rough with emotion. "I can't do this without you." The tears came before I could stop them. I fell against him, clinging to his chest, and he held me so tightly it hurt. "I tried," I whispered. "I tried to end it, but I can't let you go." The kiss that followed was nothing like our usual secretive, careful ones. It was fierce, hungry, desperate. Every ounce of pain, every shred of fear, every forbiddance desire poured into that moment until it felt like we might burn alive from it. From then on, our affair wasn't just stolen moments. It was reckless, dangerous, consuming. We met whenever we could. In hotels across town where no one would recognize us. In the quiet back office at his workplace during late hours. Sometimes even in my own home when Mark was away, where Adam would trace his fingers along the family photos on the wall and whisper, "One day, this could be us." But for every moment of bliss, there was an equal weight of guilt. I started noticing the small ways Mark tried to reach me. He'd cook dinner and ask about my day. He'd make plans for us to travel, to spend more time together. But I was always distracted, always half present, always somewhere else, someone else. And though he never said it outright, I could see it in his eyes. He knew I was slipping away from him. The guilt gnawed at me, but Adam's love was like a drug I couldn't quit. One weekend, he took me to a cabin outside the city. We pretended for 2 days that we were free. We cooked breakfast together, walked through the woods holding hands in the open, kissed without fear of being seen. At night, he held me so tenderly that I cried into his chest, terrified of the moment we'd have to go back to reality. "Leave with me," he whispered against my hair. "We can go anywhere. Start over." "Please, Lavra." The words lingered long after the weekend ended. Could I really do it? Could I really walk away from my marriage, from the life I'd built with Mark, From everything stable, even if it meant choosing the love that set me on fire? The question haunted me, and then the storm broke, it was late. One night when Mark came home earlier than expected. I had just ended a call with Adam, my voice still soft, my smile still lingering. I didn't notice Mark in the doorway until it was too late. Who was that? He asked, his tone calm, but his eyes sharp. My throat went dry. No one, just a friend. But he didn't believe me. He stood there, silent, studying me with the kind of look that stripped away every lie. Lavra, he said quietly, tell me the truth. I couldn't. The words wouldn't come. My silence told him everything. That night was the unraveling. Mark didn't rage. He didn't shout. He simply withdrew. The next morning, he left without saying where he was going. For days, he avoided me, his coldness a punishment far sharper than anger. When he finally did speak, it was with a distance that broke me more than anything. I don't know who you are anymore, he said, and I don't know if I even want to. I told Adam what had happened, and he begged me to leave, to finally choose him. And part of me wanted to God, I wanted to. But when I looked at Mark, at the man I had once loved, the man I promised my life to, I was torn, and love had become a battlefield, and no matter what I chose, someone I loved would bleed. But one thing was certain, the secret was out. The life I'd been living in the shadows was gone, and the future I feared was now staring me in the face. The question was no longer whether I loved Adam. I did, with every piece of me. The question was whether I was willing to let my entire world collapse to be with him, or if I would bury that love forever in the name of keeping the pieces intact. And as I stood between the man I married and the man who had stolen my soul, I realized there was no choice that would leave me whole.